Hello, and welcome to the 19th episode of TB76 TSW Thoughts, where I look at trains and world products from my own brutally honest perspective, go over them, and go over what I like, dislike, and what can be improved. I am an independent reviewer, so I'm therefore not affiliated or endorsed by Dovetail Games. Today, we are looking at Just Trains' debut DLC, which immediately gained a massive positive reputation upon release. And, for me personally, doing a bit of a 180 on the Class 142 Pacer, we are looking at the Blackpool Branches, a non-linear route with a central hub around Preston, going to the two Blackpool termini and the market town of Ormskirk. The route is set in 1986, starting their theme of Northwest England in that year. So, without further ado, we shall get into the overview. The Blackpool Branches DLC runs for 48 miles or 77 kilometres between the central hub at Preston, the county town of Lancashire, which yes, was originally based at Lancaster, but was moved to Preston, where the council is still based at, and goes on towards Ormskirk, a market town between Preston and Liverpool, where the third rail Merseyrail services continue on to Liverpool. But these services are however not represented in AI, which is of course understandable. Then to Blackpool North on the main line from Preston via Poulton Fylde, and finally the branch to Blackpool South, which goes via Lytham St Annes. There was originally a through route to Blackpool Central, which closed in 1964, although it wasn't part of the beaching cuts, contrary to popular belief, but was done on the request of the council at the time. Additionally included is the then freight-only branch towards Fleetwood, which was closed to passengers in 1970, and during the route setting, oil trains to the refinery at Burn Naze run on the route. The branch as far as the refinery at Burn Naze is therefore included, as is the abandoned stations at Thornton Cleveley's. And another one, which I will put the name on screen now. As of 2026, the line remains abandoned, with the main line connection at Poulton severed following the electrification of the line to Blackpool North, although in saying that, there are ongoing campaigns and efforts to reopen the line to passenger traffic. The route is depicted as it was in 1986, which is the theme with Just Trains' DLC, during the transition between BR Corporate Blue and sectorisation. The year 1986, for example, seeing the introduction of Network Southeast, and by this time, the intercity sector was already its own sector, as shown in the intercity colours of the rolling stock in the mix of BR Blue. The rolling stock included by default features for the first time the Class 142 Pacer used on stopping passenger trains, which is basically a Leyland bus bolted onto a wagon chassis, and in service were notorious for their dreadful ride quality. I've ridden on Pacers myself, well, of course me living in the north, and my earliest memory of riding a train was on a Pacer with the primary school I was at the time. I think I was 4 or 5. Anyway, the liveries that are included are BR Provincial, Greater Manchester PTE Orange, and Western Region Chocolate and Cream, aka Skipper, for when they ran on the branches of Devon and Cornwall until around 1990. The 142 does layer into the atrocious West Crapwell local to recreate these services, but the route is set after the 142s were moved away from the West Country. There are 3 types of the 142. Each with different transmissions and engine types, which are as follows: 1986 1991, which is the original Leyland engine with self-changing gears, which is what the 142 was originally equipped with; 1989 to 1993, which is the original Leyland engine but the self-changing gears are replaced by a Voith hydraulic transmission; 1993 onwards has the original Leyland engine replaced by a Cummins engine and Voith hydraulic transmission. I will demonstrate each variant departing for a comparison. Additionally, on the Class 142 Pacer, there are announcements for the next station which are activated either by pressing the PA handset or the G key, which I will give some examples now.
The next station stop is Lytham. We will shortly be arriving at Lytham. The next station stop is...
Just Trains would later go on to release the TFW 142 for Cardiff City Network, which featured the Pacer at the end of its working life, where PRM regulations stipulated their withdrawal. The main difference being double leaf doors as opposed to the original Leyland National 4-leaf doors, airline style seats as opposed to bus-like benches, and so on. When these were withdrawn in 2020, I and many others were happy to see the back of these things, but admittedly, the Blackpool Branches 142 has kind of made me like them in a way again. Anyway, moving on, the other two trains included are the Class 47/4 diesel locomotive, which is upgraded from the Northern Transpennine variant with changes such as a high intensity headlight, which by 1986 nearly all the fleet was fitted with, the steam heating boiler removed, hence the gauge for it being removed, having been replaced by ETH, a cab refurbishment as well as BR large logo and intercity liveries. Here is a side-by-side with the Northern Transpennine 147 in its pre-1984 condition. The Class 08 diesel shunter from BR Heavy Freight Pack is also included, but for the first time with upgraded textures and reworks. It is included in the following liveries, as well as a special member of the Class 08, Wigan TMD, which is the station pilot of Preston, with the red rose of Lancashire on the sides of it. The scenery right from the get-go was, and still is, one of the best in game, with a lot of local landmarks modelled, such as the churches, including most prominently St Walburge's Roman Catholic Church, and I go over the churches modelled in a separate video which I will link here, going into my church nerdery. Others include, but are not limited to, Blackpool Tower, Ainscoombe Mill near Burscough Junction, the signal boxes at Blackpool North and Salwick, Blackpool Pleasure Breach, Burn Naze Oil Refinery and more. One of the more interesting bits of scenery other than these is the derelict St Annes on the Sea station and signal box, which was being demolished at the time, being replaced with a new station that opened the next year in 1987. For reference, here is the new station taken by me in 2021. The foliage detailing is excellent, and the custom assets for the route are time period accurate, including the vehicles. As of the latest update to the route, other vehicles such as the Leyland National buses from Crewe Preston have been included to add more life to the roads. Additionally, at Preston and Blackpool North, platform announcements as heard on Crewe to Preston have been added, where I will give a little demonstration.
The train now standing at platform 2 is the 1512 service to Leeds, calling at Accrington, Blackburn, Hebden Bridge, Halifax, Bradford Interchange, New Pudsey, Bramley and Leeds. Will passengers intending on travelling on this service please board the train now as it is ready to leave. Platform 2 for the 1512 service to Leeds, which is ready to leave.
With the recent update, the electric stock such as the Class 86 and 87, plus the newer Mark IIs and Mark III, have mostly AI layers at Preston, whereas previously in the original timetable, these services were diesel hauled with the older Mark IIs, originally from Northern Transpennine. Now with the newer coaching stock used on the Preston to Blackpool North runs, as mainly hauled by the Class 47/4, which was the staple of the unelectrified line to Blackpool North with its ETH capabilities. Locomotive changeovers happened at Preston for the last unelectrified leg to Blackpool. Service variation across the original and updated timetables include an hourly stopping service between Ormskirk and Blackpool South, which goes via Preston and branches off at Kirkham and Wesham for Lytham and Blackpool South. At Midge Hall signal box, you stop to perform a token exchange, which, although is not accurately simulated, the act of stopping there is. There is also a half-hourly service between Blackpool North and Manchester Victoria, plus additional trains to Liverpool, Leeds and other destinations. These stop typically at Lytham, although not all trains do, Poulton, Fylde and Kirkham and Wesham before Preston. These services are typically run by the Class 142 Pacer, but the Class 101 also substitutes for these services. The Class 104, which I suspect has been silently shelved, would I think have had a BR Blue variant to also run these services, if not a mod. Express services between Preston and Blackpool North, which either run non-stop or call at Poulton and Kirkham and Wesham, are run by the Class 47/4, as these were the primary power of the unelectrified section between Preston and Blackpool North in the 80s. Freight and parcel services are also allocated to the Class 47, including the once daily return trip to Burn Naze oil refinery and the light engine runs. Shunting work is done using the Class 08, although these are mainly done in the evening, at night or early in the morning. There are also some very interesting route tasks, which of course has the usual route maps, but one of them is a waving gingerbread man on a plate, which is a reference to the famous gingerbread from Ormskirk, which I actually bought at Ormskirk twice, and also some golf clubs, as there are some golf clubs on the Fylde, especially around Lytham St Annes. The mastery layer is the under construction Blackpool Pleasure Beach station, which is next to the amusement park of the same name. Like the new St Annes station, this would also be opened in 1987. Let's move on to what I like, dislike and what can be improved. What I like: the overall high quality of the route and the scenery, which while was definitely high up there before the update, has been made even better with the recent update. Just Trains went out of their way to recreate the scenery from 40 years ago, and of course with what they could get for references, which is very commendable, and I think their effort paid off. It really makes you feel as if you are actually there, even though I was never alive in the 80s. The Class 142 strangely has to be a highlight of the route, especially considering how much people like me hated it when it was in service. The original Leyland engine gave it at least some character akin to the Leyland buses that they were based off, which of course when they got replaced by the Cummins engine, that is when they really began to be hated. Just Trains really did a good job replicating and recreating the original engine sounds and transmission, even if the Class 101 sounds were used as the basis, well, both having Leyland engines. The non-linear nature of the route, with Preston as the central hub of the route, including both Blackpool termini and including the Fleetwood Branch as far as Burn Naze, which JT could easily have admitted owing to it being freight only and only used once a day, but they put the extra effort in to include the Fleetwood Branch to Burn Naze. Although the Deepdale branch on the former Longridge branch would not come until Crewe Preston. I like the inclusion and representation of some of the church models on the route, which I have covered in the video I mentioned earlier, which makes a great change to the use of the generic church models, which Just Trains would do in their subsequent releases. The default rolling stock section with the redone version of the older stock is quite impressive, even without layers, in contrast to routes such as München-Augsburg, where the route is desolate without layers, so you'll still have a relatively busy timetable even without those extra layers installed. What I dislike: it is pretty minor in the grand scheme of things, but I will say that I do find the token exchange at Midge Hall to be a bit on the underwhelming side, where you should really come and walk towards the window or even come out to collect the token, which should really, in my opinion, be more accurately simulated for authenticity's sake. Well, I won't fault Just Trains on that. What can be improved? What I would have said, to be honest, is that the electric stock and the newer stock from WCML Shap and Crew Preston to be added to the timetable as ALA is at Preston. But seeing as that has already been done, it is kind of pointless now. But I am keeping that section to show you what I would have put down if JT hadn't done it yet. So, in conclusion, the Blackpool Branches route was a great start for Just Trains in their Train Sim World endeavours, and rightly deserves to be one of the top DLCs for the game. In stark contrast to West Crapwell Local among other things, it authentically captures the 1980s atmosphere, the transition from BR Blue to sectorisation era liveries, in general, is almost an authentic time capsule. So, I think this is pretty much my last TSW review before the 99.9% inevitable announcement of Train Sim World 7, which I'll probably do one or two more reviews before Train Sim World 7 is released, and then I'll look at the UK core route at least, and whatever reviews I do next I'll of course will confirm on Community Post. Until then, this is TB76 signing off. Goodbye.